Hello, welcome to Walk in the Park. My name is Tony Ingram, your host, and this is November 1st, 2017. If you want to see all my episodes, go to walkinthepark.tv, walkinthepark.tv. Now, on some of my titles, I say walkinpark.com. That's an old one. I don't have that anymore. If you go there, you won't find anything. So this is a public access television show series, weekly series in public access television, Pegasus, in Ithaca, New York. Pegasus stands for Public Educational Government Access System. So we do public producers like myself, general public. You get trained, you can come down to the studio and take a course, and then you can borrow equipment or use the studio and make your own TV show, whatever you like it to be. And we were always looking for new producers. Government meetings are videotaped. They are shown live and also recorded, put on channel was it 15 or 16, I forget. And then the educational channel has Ithaca College and other productions come on. So we have a Facebook page for public access. You can join our Facebook page. You can Pegasus at Pegasus TV, like our page, and you will get notices of shows when they are put up there. And you can also go to the website to see all our series schedules and see some of the online shows. You can look at them there. Some of the latest shows that are up, actually posted online, you can see right there. As you can see them, my shows at walkinthepark.tv, but they will also be at pegasus.webstarts.com. So come on down. This is community media, and this is your media. You can be part of it. You can be a producer and, of course, a watcher. So let's go for community media. Well, this week we're going to visit some waterfalls and some lakes, and I guess I could call it Roaring Falls and Misty Lakes. So we had some, this is Wednesday, I'm recording this, November 1st. So a couple of days ago, I guess it was the 30th, we ended up some heavy rain from overnight and the day before, and we got some pretty dramatic effects on our waterfalls. So let's go take a look at Ithaca Falls and Buttermilk Falls in Ithaca and see what it looked like. Okay, coming right up here. So we can see the real erosive power of these streams. Imagine that going on for 10 or 15,000 years. That can erode out our gorges. And in fact, it's times like these, probably 90% of the erosion of the gorges takes place at times like these. We're going to have more of it because of climate change. There's much more energy in the atmosphere, much fiercer storms, much heavier rains. And I know the state parks, for instance, are already planning for how we're going to deal with those heavier kinds of floods in our gorges, and we've had some destructive ones. This wasn't too bad, but some of them we've had have done some severe damage. We're going to take a more tranquil look now at Keuka Lake from 3 different viewpoints around Ithaca. We'll start off at Sunset Park in Keuka Heights. So take a look at Keuka Lake. Long views of Keuka Lake. So a couple of weeks ago I took a trip to the Western Finger Lakes. I went to a meeting. I'm a retired state parks environmental educator for the Finger Lakes region, and they have a regional meeting every year. Their staff and retirees are invited to the picnic. So I went to, this year it was at Canandaigua State Historic Site. I'll show you a couple of pictures of that in a minute. But I went and I camped at Keuka Lake State Park, which you may or may not have been to, but it's in Branchport, New York. It's on the west side of Keuka Lake, so it's actually labeled there just left of center. On the western branch of the Y-shaped Keuka Lake. So Keuka Lake is an interesting lake geologically because it once was two rivers that joined right in the middle there at what's now called Bluff Point. When the glaciers came down from Canada, they plowed out those two valleys, and then the glacier joined in the middle there at Bluff Point and scoured out the valley below there, leaving a Y-shaped lake. And there's some other remnant Y-shaped valleys, but this is the only one that still has lake water in both parts of the Y. So we're going to zoom into the northern end of the west branch, where you can see in the upper left it says Branchport. That's the name of the little village up there. And then to the right with the red dot there, that is Keuka Lake State Park, overlooking the lake. And lower right, you can see some ellipses there. Well, that's the campground, and I stayed in there. I had my little camper, and actually the one on the extreme right, that's where I stayed, called let's see, what's the name of that place? Anyway, so then just up out of the park along the road that's above, you can see sort of an S-shaped curve there, and over the lake there is this view, really beautiful view down the west branch of the lake. And the local municipalities have put in these really great interpretive signs that go into quite a bit of detail about the geology and the history of the area. So that's pretty cool. In fact, I recognize some of the pictures. On the right there is a photograph of the lake with a peninsula in it, and that's Bluff Point. That was taken by Bill Hecht, who lives in Union Springs, New York, and he does a lot of local photography of the Finger Lakes. I have some more that we might get to later of the area. So driving down into the park, this is the view of the lake, and finally down to the shore. This is near the swimming area and the picnic area, obviously, and looking down the shore. So for maybe a mile or so down the shore, the lake is pretty wild. There's not a whole lot of public access to Keuka Lake, but this is one of them. Down the southern end of the lake, there's Champlain Park, which is part of the village of Hammondsport. But this is probably the biggest public access to the lake. This is looking north towards Branchport along the shore. So pretty cool place. So let's see. We're gonna go now to Canandaigua State Historic Site, and looking on the map here. Now we've gone over to another lake west. Now, if you look all extreme right there, you see a lake. Well, that's Seneca Lake. And just down the lower right, you can see the east prong of Keuka Lake. And then in the middle is Canandaigua Lake. And up at the northern end is the city of Canandaigua. And I don't have on this map, but in the northwestern part of the upper left part of this map is Canandaigua State Historic Site. And it's the only state historic site in New York that's dedicated to the culture and history of Native American people, specifically the Seneca people, who were one of the 6 nations of the Iroquois, or Haudenosaunee as they call themselves, people of the Long House. And they have in the back there is their new cultural center, and very interesting place. I got in there to see some of it, but I want to go back when it's really fully open to the public and explore all their exhibits, and they've done a really good job. And it's an exciting place to go visit. So sometime, go online, find out their schedule, and then take a trip over there sometime and take a look. There's also trails. And one of the things they built a number of years ago, was a longhouse. They call it a bark longhouse, which is a full-scale replica of an 17th century longhouse, which is people would have lived in. And there were maybe 5,000 people that lived there. There's some interpretive signs in the area. There's trails you can see that go around and have various themes. And near the longhouse are some cultural exhibits, outdoor exhibits, interpretive signs. This one's about women's rights and the prominent role that women have played in Haudenosaunee or Iroquois society all along. And particularly they're in charge of the towns and agriculture, and complementary roles with the men, and were an inspiration to some degree for our original women's rights activists back in the 1840s, Elizabeth Cady Stanton and others that are celebrated at Women's Rights National Historical Park in Seneca Falls at the northern end of Keuka Lake, or near the northern end of Keuka Lake. So it has been documented that the early women's rights activists in Seneca Falls did get to know the clan mothers and so forth of the Seneca and probably Cayugas, and had their eyes opened. So, okay, let's go back to Canandaigua. I spent that time at Canandaigua, and then went back to Keuka Lake State Park to camp another night. And just down where it says Canandaigua up there at the upper end of the lake, there's a little park along the shore there, and I just wanted to have a picture or two of Canandaigua Lake going down the eastern shore. It was a very windy day, and kicking up some whitecaps and so forth. There's a little tiny park where you can pull over. It's really just a sort of a rest stop and view of the lake. And I had some video I took, but I haven't had a chance to put that together into a clip you can see. So, so we're going to go back now to Keuka Lake State Park, and there we go. We're going back. But before we got there, in the upper left it says Branchport, and right in Branchport there is a new project that's very exciting, very interesting. It is the Finger Lakes Museum and Aquarium, and that's a project that's been in the works for a number of years. They formed a group that went around to various places in the Finger Lakes to see where they might hold it. They considered Ithaca, they considered Wells College, and they settled on Keuka Lake. In fact, I think originally the plan was to have it at Keuka Lake State Park, but then some buildings became available across the lake in Branchport, including a school which is being renovated. It's all being ripped out now, an old school that's no longer in use for that purpose. It looks like they're going to do something with that. And then there is this barn that they have a lot of boats in both the school and the barn right now. and this is their Creekside campus here, Creekside Center, and they do have a little boat launch for canoes and kayaks, and they do aquatic programs. So go on their website and take a look. Finger Lakes Museum and Aquarium, and you can get. They have a Facebook page. You can get apprised of the activities they've got going on. But it's an ambitious project. They are, trying to raise funds and so forth. And eventually they will have a big museum up there, the Finger Lakes. They do have some interpretive signs out, so they are working on it. It's a long, expensive project. So now we're going to go back to Keuka Lake. I spent the night there. It was a very cold night. This is like 2 weeks ago, I think it was. Maybe the 15th or the Tuesday morning. Oh, it was cold. Went down to about freezing. We had frost. And when it gets cold, the lakes cool off. And the lakes hold a lot of heat. They gather a lot of heat in the summer. Water holds a lot of heat relative to the air. And when the air cools off rapidly, like it did then the lakes steam. It looks like they steam. The vapor is given off. What happens is that the heat that's in the lake is... pushes, the vapor pressure pushes water vapor into the atmosphere, which immediately condenses in the cold air. And so this is the lake cooling off. We'll see the lakes do this all the way into January as it gets colder and colder, and eventually you won't see much of this. But it takes a real contrasting cold snap. So this cloud that's rising above the lake, probably right at dawn, it was right on the lake. It's very foggy. And I think probably all the lakes were doing this that day. Probably Keuka Lake was doing it that day. But so anyway, I said, oh my gosh, that's great. Let's go out and take some pictures. So I did. And it was very cold and windy, but very rewarding time to be. Here it is, the clouds are lifting off the lake as the sun hits them and warms them up. I got a little video clip to dramatize that. So let's take a look at this clip. Very beautiful. And it's that giving off of the heat in the fall and early winter that moderates the climates around the lakes, such that it holds off the early frost, and it moderates the extreme temperatures in the wintertime. So it doesn't get quite as bitterly cold. At the lake, it gets plenty cold, and this lake will probably freeze over if we have a normally cold winter. But that tends to make the climates around the lakes a little bit milder. It allows us to have, in part, as one of the reasons we have vineyards and orchards around the lakes. And that's also true around the Great Lakes. So you're watching Walk in the Park, walkinthepark.tv. Go see all my episodes online if you want. This is episode 177, November 1st. It's recorded 2017. So I also did a little hiking. If you go to these, there's a couple of really cool websites now you can go to, interactive websites. One of them is ithacatrails.org, and the other one is Go Finger Lakes. And ithacatrails.org has trails all over the county. Let's see if I can even read this thing here. I don't know if I can get to that, but there's a large number of it's some 280 miles or something. Whoops, I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'm looking it up on the Anyway, ithacatrails.org. Go there. You can select the trails. There's many different things you can choose among. Here we go. It's going to tell me, no matter the season, explore the beauty of the outdoors in Ithaca and Tompkins counties. Spend a Sunday day hiking to waterfalls and gorges, or bike nearby on one of the Finger Lakes' largest lakes, Keuka Lake. You'll find over 28,000 acres, that's what I was trying to remember, of public New York State forest ripe for skiing, hiking, mountain biking, and exploring. What are you waiting for? Greater Ithaca and Tompkins County offers numerous trails and access to 150 waterfalls and gorges. Blah, blah, blah. So here's some of the sponsors. Look at all these different groups. Let me see if I can get that up here. Yeah, we've got Town of Ulysses, Cornell Botanic Gardens, Lansing Pathways, Finger Lakes Land Trust, Ithaca, Tompkins County Transportation Council, State Parks, Town of Ithaca, Ithaca Convention Visitors Bureau, Bike Walk Tompkins, so forth. Nature Conservancy, Go Finger Lakes of the Finger Lakes Land Trust, North Country Trail Association, and the Keuka Trails Club, Tompkins County itself. So a lot of different sponsors of this. So this is a really great resource, and I've been going out and exploring some places I'd never been around here, even though I've lived around here forever. Seems like it, about 50 years or so. One of the places I did know to go to was along Fall Creek Gorge on the Keuka Trail. And the Keuka Trail has been around for a long time, about as long as I've been in town. And here's the map of it, but this is off the ithacatrails.org map. And so the Keuka Trail goes up all around Fall Creek. And let's see what else. So there's the Cornell Botanic Gardens runs Fall Creek Gorge. They own it and they manage it. And they have some nice interpretive signs and orientation signs. So here I went to the Stewart Avenue Bridge here, and let's see how close I can get, and just walked up and took some pictures, and I walked up. There he says, "You are here." That's the Stewart Avenue Bridge on the left there, and in the middle is the suspension bridge, and they named the waterfalls. And that's really cool because some of the waterfalls in this gorge, all this time, I didn't know what they were called. Here's a view looking downstream from Stewart Avenue Bridge. Right in the middle is the brink of Ithaca Falls, so that we saw earlier, and then of course in the upper part of the picture is a little bit of Keuka Lake, and then turning around is this other fall. This is Forest Falls. And I didn't really understand that's what that waterfall was named, even though I've lived here so long. Forest Falls. So this is looking east from the Stewart Avenue Bridge. Now let's go back to this map here. In the middle here it says the Horseshoe Falls Trail. It's a very short trail, but it's a little bit steep, and it goes down into the gorge, right at the base of the gorge. And that's what I did that time, I've done before. And now we get down in the gorge. And this is looking downstream. Look at the upper left there. That is a Stewart Avenue Bridge. So I'm looking over the top of Forest Falls. Is right in the lower part of the picture. That would be the top of Forest Falls. So there is Forest Falls from the bridge, and then looking back looking down in the gorge over the top of Forest Falls. So I would have been above that waterfall in the background in that picture. Then you turn around and you're looking upstream at Horseshoe Falls. And just the top of the picture is the Cornell Suspension Bridge over the gorge. And look at that. So this is where people walk across the gorge and have for ages and ages, and there are all kinds of legends about the gorge. Here's the view from the end of the bridge. I didn't take this picture, but notice there is netting now, the suicide prevention netting, which is a sad commentary on our times. But and then here's another interpretive sign that the Botanic Gardens has put in, showing the different waterfalls, called the Staircase of Waterfalls, step by step coming down from Triphammer Falls down to Horseshoe Falls, where we are there. That's closer in there, yeah. Oh, Rocky Falls, Triphammer Falls, Forest Falls, and Ithaca Falls. So 4 waterfalls are featured down from BB Lake. Here we are at Horseshoe Falls, which is under the bridge there, and it's a very pretty place. It's a popular swimming spot, but it's a dangerous swimming spot, so nobody's going to go in there now swimming, obviously, but it is popular in the warm weather, and there's been some lives lost there. Here's just some colors and details in the creek with the rock that I thought was pretty. They do have this warning sign at the end of the trail asking you not to go any farther, and an illustration of the hazards that the waterfalls have deep pools below them, and there's undertows, and you can get pulled in, especially in higher water, and you can't get out, and nobody can get you out alive. So that's a serious thing to take into account when you are going in our gorges. Don't go swimming in the gorges unless it's a place like Tremont or Buttermilk where they have a lifeguard and all that. So people do anyway, but every once in a while it takes someone's life. Now Bill Hecht, he takes some of these aerial photographs I mentioned earlier in that interpretive sign over Keuka Lake. He went out in the last week and took some aerial photographs around Keuka Lake and elsewhere, and there were some other ones that I haven't put in this show than some of the other lakes, but I will in a future show that he took recently. This is Taganic Point at Taganic Falls State Park, and you can see the gorge going up in there, and there it is. The point on the left is where the concerts take place, and North Point on the right, and South Point on the left, the swimming area. And then looking into the gorge, right in the upper center there, that is Taganic Falls, right in there in the gorge. And you can see the new, here we'll zoom in more. The falls are just right of center in there in this great aerial shot by Bill Hecht. And then to the lower right is the overlook and all the new overlook facility there, which is really quite an improvement over what was there before for so many years when I worked in the parks. And finally, he flew around and took this shot of the gorge and the lake, and of course just left of center is Taganic Point, again sticking out into the lake. The contents of the gorge eroded by the stream over thousands of years, deposited in the lake, making this peninsula. And then the upper center, the very top of the picture, is Myers Point in Lansing, and Myers Park, and Salt Point. Salt Point and Myers Point on either side of Salmon Creek. So that's what I've got to show you today. I want to thank you all for joining me. We'll wrap it up here. We'll do it with this one picture, another picture, a historic picture that Bill took. This is the Swiss Chalet in Watkins Glen back in the 1800s. And we'll do some more about that sometime. But thanks for joining me, and get outside even in this weather and go for a walk in the park.